The night air moves softly across the old lands of Persia. Warm wind drifts over quiet hills and dry riverbanks where the last traces of daylight have already faded into darkness. Far away, beyond the sleeping farms and distant roads, small lamps still glow inside mud brick homes. Their light is weak and golden. It spills gently through woven curtains and narrow doorways, touching dusty floors and worn wooden tables. The world has become quiet now. Even the dogs in the village have settled into silence. Only the sound of insects rises from the dark edges of the fields. Somewhere nearby, water moves slowly through a narrow irrigation canal. Its soft flowing sound carries through the stillness of the evening. Inside the homes of ancient Persia, families prepare for rest. The heat of the day still lingers inside the thick mud walls. During the long afternoon, the sun had pressed heavily upon the earth. Workers walked slowly beneath its weight. Farmers bent over dry soil beside rows of barley and wheat. Bakers stood beside hot clay ovens. Potters shaped wet earth beneath tired hands. Servants crossed crowded courtyards carrying jars of water and baskets of figs. Now the labor of the day is ending. The streets outside grow emptier with each passing moment. Sandals scrape quietly over stone paths as the final travelers return home. Merchants close wooden shutters over their market stalls. Thin trails of smoke rise from cooking fires and drift upward into the dark sky. Above the villages and towns, the stars appear slowly. The people of Persia know these stars well. They shine clearly above the dry lands every night, stretching endlessly over deserts, hills, rivers, and distant mountain roads. Shepherds sleep beneath them. Caravan workers follow them across empty lands. Children stare at them through half-closed eyes before drifting into sleep beside their families. Inside one small home near the edge of a farming village, a woman kneels beside a clay oven that still holds a little warmth from the evening meal. She presses flat rounds of dough against the inner wall of the oven while her youngest child sleeps nearby on a woven mat. The smell of warm bread fills the room. Her husband sits close to the doorway where the night breeze can reach him. His shoulders ache from carrying water through the fields all morning. Dust still clings to the folds of his clothing. His hands are rough from rope and wood and dry soil. He says very little now. Most evenings end this way. After long hours beneath the sun, words become fewer. The body grows heavy. Silence feels comforting. A small oil lamp flickers beside him. The flame bends gently each time the breeze enters through the doorway. Shadows move slowly across the walls. Clay jars stand in dark corners beside bundles of grain and hanging tools. The family eats quietly together. There is bread, onions, lentils, and a little goat cheese wrapped in cloth to keep it cool. A bowl of dates rests in the center of the floor. Water sits inside a large clay jar where the thick walls keep it slightly cool even after the hot day. Outside, somewhere beyond the homes, a donkey shifts in its sleep. The sound fades quickly. Night settles deeper over the land. In ancient Persia, much of life follows the rhythm of heat and darkness. The mornings begin early, before sunrise touches the earth. Workers rise while the air is still cool enough for movement. Fires are lit before dawn. Bread is baked while the stars remain overhead. Water is carried before the roads grow hot beneath bare feet and sandals. By midday, the world slows. The heat becomes too heavy for quick movement. Even animals search for shade. Men rest beneath woven coverings beside fields. Traders sit quietly behind their goods in crowded markets. Children grow sleepy in the warm stillness. Then evening arrives again. And slowly, life softens. In larger Persian cities, the nights are different, though still calm in their own way. Beyond high walls and crowded streets, lamps burn late inside wealthier homes. Courtyards filled with stone fountains gather cool air after sunset. Cypress trees move gently in the night breeze. Servants carry trays of food through quiet halls while musicians play soft melodies somewhere deeper inside the home. But even in these richer places, the night eventually becomes peaceful. The noise fades slowly. One by one, lamps disappear into darkness. The city exhales. In a narrow street near the center of one such city, a young scribe walks home carrying a bundle of reed pens tied carefully with cord. All day he sat cross-legged beside low wooden tables recording trade accounts for merchants selling grain and cloth. His fingers ache from hours of writing. Black ink stains the edges of his hands. He moves slowly now beneath the stars. The stone beneath his sandals still holds warmth from the day. Nearby homes glow softly from within. He smells cooked lamb drifting through open windows. He hears quiet conversation behind courtyard walls. Further down the road, an old man sits outside his doorway cooling himself beneath the night sky. Beside him rests a woven basket filled with pomegranates gathered earlier that morning. He watches the young scribe pass by but says nothing. There is no need for many words in the quiet hours. The night itself feels full enough. Beyond the cities and villages, the deserts of Persia stretch endlessly beneath silver moonlight. Caravan camps rest quietly beside ancient roads. Camels kneel upon the cool sand while traders sleep wrapped in wool blankets beneath open skies. Small fires burn low. Tea kettles rest beside fading coals. The long journeys pause until morning. Some travelers dream of rivers and gardens. Others dream only of rest for tired feet and aching backs. The desert wind moves steadily over everything, smoothing footprints from the earth before dawn returns again. In distant mountain villages, cooler air settles into the valleys after sunset. Sheep gather inside stone enclosures. Smoke rises from rooftop chimneys. Families huddle close beside small fires while old grandparents speak softly about seasons long past. Children listen sleepily. Their eyes grow heavy. Outside, dark mountains stand silently beneath the stars. Ancient Persia is a land of many landscapes. Dry deserts stretch beside fertile valleys. Rivers carve paths through hard earth. Date palms grow near warm waters while snow sometimes gathers upon distant mountain peaks. And through all these lands, ordinary people live quiet lives shaped by work, family, weather, and time. A fisherman beside the southern waters rises before dawn each morning to untangle nets from the previous day. Salt dries upon his hands. His small boat rocks gently against dark water while seabirds cry overhead. A shepherd guides tired animals across rough hillsides where dry grass bends beneath the wind. A young servant girl carries heavy jars through palace courtyards while trying not to spill precious water onto the warm stones. A baker wakes in darkness to prepare dough before the city stirs awake. Their lives move quietly forward one day at a time. Most people in ancient Persia do not travel far from where they are born. Their world is made of familiar roads, familiar neighbors, familiar seasons. They know the sound of local wells and the smell of nearby fields after rare rainfalls. They know which walls hold shade during the hottest hours. They know how long bread must bake and how much water the goats will need before evening. These small pieces of daily life become the shape of their existence. And slowly, year after year, generations pass in much the same way. Tonight, inside one farming village near a slow-moving river, an elderly woman cannot sleep. The air inside the home still feels warm despite the late hour. She rises carefully from her sleeping mat so she does not wake the others nearby. The room is dim. Only moonlight enters through the doorway. She steps quietly outside into the courtyard where the air feels cooler against her skin. A clay water jar rests beside the wall. She pours herself a small cup and drinks slowly beneath the stars. The village is silent now. Only the sound of distant water reaches her ears. She remembers many nights like this from earlier years. Nights when her children were still young. Nights when her husband returned home exhausted from repairing irrigation walls beneath the hot sun. Nights when dust storms moved across the fields and covered everything in fine brown earth. Time has moved gently but steadily. The old woman sits upon a low stone bench and watches the sky. In ancient Persian homes, Sleep often comes slowly during warmer seasons. Families rest together on woven mats spread across floors or rooftops where cooler air can reach them. Thin blankets lie folded nearby, though many are not needed during the hottest months. Some homes are simple single-room structures built from mud, brick and straw. Others contain small courtyards where families cook and gather during the evenings. Wealthier homes may include shaded gardens, carved wooden doors, and painted walls, but even these larger homes still depend upon the same rhythms of sunlight and darkness. There is no escaping the heat completely. During summer afternoons, walls radiate warmth long after sunset. Bodies grow tired from carrying water, grinding grain, tending animals, and walking dusty roads beneath endless sun. At night, exhaustion settles over everything like a blanket. A father sleeps almost immediately after lying down. A child murmurs softly while dreaming. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs quietly in the darkness. The sounds of resting people drift through the night. Near the center of another village, a small group of men still sit awake outside a tea house. They are older now, too accustomed to late conversation to sleep early. A dim lantern hangs above them while they speak softly about harvests, taxes, weather, and caravan news from distant cities. One man slowly turns prayer beads through his fingers. Another rubs his tired knees. The tea has long since cooled, but still they remain together beneath the warm night air. Eventually even they begin to rise. One by one they disappear into the dark streets. Silence returns once more. In Persian homes, morning always arrives earlier than most wish. Before sunrise, the world begins stirring again. Roosters call from rooftops. Bakers relight ovens. Donkeys bray impatiently from courtyards. Water carriers lift heavy jars onto sore shoulders. But for now, the night still holds the land. And in these quiet hours, the ancient world feels softer somehow. The burdens of labor rest temporarily beside sleeping bodies. Markets no longer demand shouting voices. Tools no longer scrape against stone and wood. Even the rivers seem calmer beneath the moonlight. Far from the villages, beside an old road crossing the desert, a caravan guard sits awake beside fading embers. His eyes move across the darkness while others sleep nearby. He hears the slow breathing of camels resting in the sand. The stars above him are bright and endless. The air smells faintly of dust and smoke. He wraps his cloak tighter against the cooler desert wind that arrives before dawn. Tomorrow the journey will continue. There will be more heat, more distance, more tired feet upon hard earth. But for this moment, the world is still. And stillness itself feels precious. In many Persian households, evening meals are the gentlest part of the day. Work pauses. Families gather close together. Lamps glow warmly against earthen walls. Bread is passed from hand to hand. Simple foods fill most tables. Rice cooked slowly in clay pots. Herbs gathered from nearby gardens. Yogurt cooled in shaded rooms. Figs dried beneath the sun. Lentils flavored with onion and salt. The meals are rarely large, but after long labor they feel comforting. Children often fall asleep while adults continue quiet conversation nearby. Mothers lift sleeping bodies carefully onto mats. Fathers stretch aching backs beside dimming lamps. Outside, the stars continue their silent movement overhead. The night deepens. And ancient Persia drifts gently toward another dawn. Before the first light reaches the hills, the world of ancient Persia begins to wake again. The stars still hang above the villages, pale and fading now, while a cool gray light slowly gathers along the horizon. The air feels softer at this hour. The heavy heat of the previous day has not yet returned. For a little while, the earth can breathe. Inside a small mud brick home beside the riverbank, a baker opens his eyes before the others. The room is dark except for the faint outline of clay jars and sleeping bodies resting quietly nearby. He lies still for a moment, listening. Somewhere outside, a rooster calls once into the silence. Nearby water moves gently through the irrigation channels. A donkey shifts its weight against a wooden post. The baker rises slowly from his woven mat, careful not to wake his youngest daughter sleeping beside the wall. His knees ache immediately. Years of lifting flour sacks and bending beside ovens have left stiffness deep inside his joints. He presses one hand against the floor for balance before standing fully. The cool earth beneath his feet feels pleasant. For a few moments he simply breathes in the quiet darkness of the early morning. Then the day begins. He steps into the courtyard where the sky is slowly changing color. Clay ovens rest cold and dark against the far wall, waiting for fire. He gathers dried brush and pieces of wood stacked beneath a woven covering. Dust clings to his fingers. Soon thin smoke begins rising gently into the still air. Inside neighboring homes, others are waking too. An old woman grinds grain using a heavy stone wheel while humming softly beneath her breath. Two young brothers carry empty jars toward the public well before crowds gather there. A mother wraps cloth around her hair before kneeling to prepare dough in a shallow bowl. Across the village, faint lamps appear one by one. The quiet hours before sunrise are some of the busiest in Persian life. Much must be done before the heat arrives. By midday, even simple tasks become exhausting beneath the burning sky. So people rise early. Earlier than comfort allows. Earlier than tired bodies truly wish. In larger towns, workers move through narrow streets while darkness still lingers between the buildings. Sandals scrape softly across worn stone paths. Merchants unlock wooden shutters. Stable boys feed restless animals waiting inside shaded enclosures. The smell of smoke and baking bread slowly spreads through the cool air. Near one crowded marketplace, a water seller fills large clay containers from a public cistern. The water splashes quietly into the jars while dawn slowly brightens overhead. Already his shoulders feel sore from yesterday's labor. Soon he will carry these heavy jars through busy streets beneath the rising sun. But for now, the morning remains calm. The sky turns pale gold. Birds begin moving across the rooftops. In one wealthy home near the center of the city, servants quietly prepare the household before their masters wake. A young servant girl sweeps dust from a long courtyard using a bundle of stiff reeds tied together with cord. She moves carefully around small stone fountains where cool water reflects the early light. Another servant lights oil lamps inside shaded hallways where the morning sun cannot yet reach. From the kitchen comes the smell of warm flatbread and boiling herbs. The great houses of Persia are larger than the homes of farmers and laborers, but they depend upon constant work from many tired hands. Floors must be swept. Water must be carried. Clothing must be washed and folded. Animals must be fed. Fires must be kept alive. Much of this labor happens quietly before sunrise. Often the servants themselves are barely awake as they work. Their bodies move from habit more than energy. Outside the city walls, farmers already walk toward the fields carrying wooden tools over their shoulders. The earth beneath their sandals feels cool for now, though they know it will not remain that way long. The fields stretch outward beside the riverbanks in neat rows of barley, wheat, onions, and herbs. Irrigation canals wind slowly through the land like narrow ribbons of moving silver. Without these waters, much of the earth would remain dry and hard beneath the endless sun. Water is life here. Every village understands this deeply. Men spend long hours repairing canal walls, clearing mud from narrow channels, and guiding precious water toward thirsty crops. Arguments sometimes rise between neighboring farms over access to irrigation. During dry seasons, anxiety spreads quietly through entire communities. Everyone watches the rivers carefully. This morning, though, the water still flows steadily. A young farmer kneels beside one canal, placing his hand into the cool current. The sensation feels refreshing after sleep. He splashes water across his face before beginning work. Nearby, his father examines the wheat carefully. Harvest season will come soon. The grain bends gently in the morning breeze, pale and dry beneath the growing light. The older man says little. He has spent his entire life beside these same fields. His skin has darkened beneath decades of sun. His hands are thick and rough. His back no longer straightens fully after years of bending over crops. Still, each morning he rises before dawn. The rhythm of work has become part of his body itself. Across Persia, countless lives move this way. Quiet repetition. The same roads. The same labor. The same tired evenings beneath oil lamps. And somehow within this repetition, life continues gently forward. In the growing light of morning, fishermen along the southern waters push small wooden boats into calm waves. Nets lie piled at their feet smelling of salt and river weeds. The sea air feels cool now, though heat already waits beyond the horizon. The fishermen speak softly as they work. Most conversations are practical. Wind direction. Water depth. The condition of the nets. One older fisherman pauses briefly to stretch his aching shoulders before climbing into the boat. His youngest son sits near the front, still sleepy-eyed beneath tangled dark hair. The child yawns while gulls cry overhead. Soon the boat drifts quietly away from shore. The water ripples gently behind them. Elsewhere, high in the hills, shepherds guide animals across rocky paths where thin grasses grow between stones. Morning mist still lingers faintly in some valleys. Sheep bells create soft uneven music against the silence. A shepherd boy walks barefoot through the cool grass carrying a crooked wooden staff taller than himself. His family has tended animals for generations. He knows these hills as deeply as others know city streets. He knows where shade appears during afternoon heat. He knows which springs dry first during summer. He knows the quiet resting places where animals gather at dusk. As the morning brightens, smoke rises from hundreds of homes across Persia. Breakfasts are prepared. Flatbread tears softly between hands. Dates are shared among children. Goat milk is poured into clay cups. Workers eat quickly before the hardest hours begin. In poorer homes, meals are simple and small. Sometimes only bread dipped in oil or herbs. During difficult seasons, families stretch grain supplies carefully, counting each remaining sack with worried eyes. Drought can arrive slowly across these lands. So can hunger. But even during difficult years, daily routines continue. Fires are lit. Dough is mixed. Water is carried. Animals are fed. Life moves steadily onward. Near one busy road outside the city, a caravan prepares for departure. Camels groan softly as workers secure heavy bundles onto their backs using thick ropes. The smell of leather, dust, and animal sweat fills the warming air. Merchants speak quietly together while checking supplies. Water skins. Dried figs. Blankets. Spices wrapped carefully in cloth. The caravan leader studies the brightening sky. Long travel must begin before the heat becomes dangerous. By afternoon, the desert roads will shimmer beneath burning light. Already the first warmth touches the earth. One traveler adjusts the cloth around his head to protect himself from the coming sun. Another rubs sleep from tired eyes while climbing onto a camel's back. Then slowly, almost silently, the caravan begins moving forward. The animals sway gently across the dusty road. Footprints rise behind them in pale clouds. Soon they disappear into the widening morning. Back in the villages, children begin their own daily tasks. Some gather firewood from dry hillsides. Others carry small baskets to nearby gardens. Older daughters help mothers prepare meals and wash clothing beside canals. Even childhood contains labor here. Yet moments of softness still appear. A little girl pauses beside the river to watch dragonflies moving above the water. Two boys laugh quietly while chasing goats through a courtyard. An infant sleeps peacefully in the shade while nearby adults work. These small moments drip gently through the long days. Inside a cool stone workshop near the city market, A potter begins shaping clay upon a spinning wheel. His hands move automatically from years of practice. Wet earth rises beneath his fingers into bowls, jars, and narrow-necked vessels. The workshop smells of damp clay and smoke from nearby kilns. Light enters through a small opening high in the wall, casting pale shapes across the floor. The potter's apprentice kneels nearby preparing more clay. His arms already ache from kneading heavy wet earth since before sunrise. Neither speaks much. The spinning wheel hums softly between them. Across the marketplace, metal workers hammer bronze into tools while sparks briefly flash against dim interiors. Weavers sit cross-legged beside looms creating cloth from dyed threads that stretch tightly between wooden frames. The city slowly fills with movement. Voices rise. Animals cry out. Sandals strike stone streets in uneven rhythms. And above it all, the sun climbs steadily higher. By late morning, the cool softness of dawn has disappeared. Heat settles heavily across the land. Dust hangs in the air above busy roads. Workers wipe sweat from their faces again and again. In farming villages, labor slows slightly as the hottest hours approach. Men rest beneath rough shade coverings beside the fields. Women retreat indoors where thick mud walls provide some relief from the burning air outside. Even animals grow quieter. Dogs sleep beneath carts. Birds disappear into shaded trees. The entire world seems to move more slowly beneath the weight of the sun. Inside one small home, a young mother fans her sleeping child with a woven palm leaf while lentils simmer quietly nearby. The room smells warm and earthy. Sunlight slips through narrow openings in the wall, creating bright lines across the dusty floor. The mother herself feels exhausted. She slept only a few hours before rising to bake bread and carry water. Her arms ache from lifting jars. Her eyes burn from smoke drifting upward from the cooking fire. Still, there is comfort in this brief midday quiet. Outside, distant sounds continue softly. A cartwheel creaks somewhere along the road. A merchant calls out prices from the market. Water splashes gently against stone basins. And slowly, almost unnoticed, the day continues moving toward evening once again. The ancient world breathes in these slow rhythms. Morning labor. Afternoon heat. Evening rest. Night silence. Again and again across generations. And as the sun begins its long descent toward the western hills, the people of Persia quietly endure another day beneath the wide and endless sky. By late afternoon, the light across the Persian lands begins to soften. The hardest heat of the day slowly loosens its grip on the earth. Long shadows stretch outward from walls, trees, and resting animals. Dust floating above the roads glows gently beneath the lowering sun. Workers begin to lift their heads again. The long hours of heat have drained much of their strength, but evening is approaching now, and with it comes relief. In the fields beyond one farming village, men stand slowly from the shade where they rested through the hottest part of the day. Their clothing clings damply to their backs. Fine dust covers their sandals and settles into the folds of their robes. One farmer walks toward the irrigation canal carrying a wooden shovel over his shoulder. His steps are slow with exhaustion. The canal water moves lazily beside him, reflecting gold light from the descending sun. Nearby, women gather bundles of herbs and onions from small garden plots close to their homes. Children chase one another between rows of barley while goats wander restlessly near the edges of the fields. The evening breeze begins to return. It moves softly through dry grass and palm leaves, carrying the smells of warm earth, river water, smoke, and distant cooking fires. After the stillness of midday, even a small breeze feels comforting. Along the roads outside the villages, travelers continue their slow journeys beneath the fading light. Some lead donkeys burdened with baskets of grain or pottery. Others walk alone carrying cloth bundles tied carefully across tired shoulders. A caravan returning from distant trade routes approaches the city gates in a long trail of movement and dust. The camels sway gently beneath heavy loads of spices, wool, carved wood, and dried fruit gathered from many distant lands. The guards at the gates watch quietly as the travelers pass. Everyone looks weary now. Faces shine with sweat and dust. Lips are dry from long hours beneath the sun. Yet the sight of home softens something inside the returning travelers. They know soon there will be cool water, warm bread, and rest. Inside the cities, the marketplaces slowly change their mood as evening nears. During the bright hours of midday, merchants often sat heavily behind their goods, conserving energy while heat pressed against the crowded streets. Now voices rise again. Customers return to purchase evening meals before darkness arrives. Bakers stack fresh rounds of bread onto cloth-covered tables. Sellers of dates and figs arrange fruit carefully into neat piles. Potters wipe dust from finished jars and bowls. The sounds of bargaining drift softly through the air. Nothing moves too quickly now. Even busy streets seem calmer beneath the gentler light of evening. A young boy carries a tray of teacups through the market, weaving carefully between shoppers and resting animals. Steam rises from the cups into the cooling air. The scent of mint follows behind him as he walks. At the edge of the marketplace, an elderly storyteller sits beneath a shaded wall while several children gather nearby. His voice is low and steady. He speaks of old journeys across distant deserts, of forgotten villages swallowed by sand, of rivers that once flowed stronger than they do now. The children listen quietly. Some lean against one another with heavy eyes after long days in the heat. A little girl absent-mindedly traces patterns in the dust beside her sandals while the old man continues speaking beneath the fading sunlight. In ancient Persia, stories often belong to the evening. After labor ends and darkness approaches, words move more slowly and gently. Families gather in courtyards or rooftops where cooler air drifts through the night. Old memories return more easily beneath the stars. Many stories are simple. A grandfather remembers an unusually cold winter from many years earlier. A merchant speaks softly about a distant mountain road where snow blocked the caravan path for days. A fisherman describes strange lights once seen moving across dark water before dawn. These stories pass quietly from one generation to the next. Not written. Not preserved in great records. Only carried in tired human voices through warm evenings beside oil lamps and cooking fires. As the sun lowers further, shadows deepen inside the narrow streets of the cities. Stone walls release the heat they absorbed all day long. The air smells of baked bread, smoke, sweat, and warm dust. In one crowded neighborhood, women gather at a public well filling clay jars before darkness arrives completely. The sound of water echoing against stone rises gently into the evening air. A young mother adjusts the sleeping child resting against her shoulder while waiting her turn. Nearby, two older women speak quietly about the coming harvest season. Their voices remain calm and slow. No one has energy left for loud conversation after a day beneath the Persian sun. Elsewhere, on the rooftop of a modest home, an old tailor sits cross-legged beside folded cloth while the final light fades from the sky. Throughout the day he repaired garments for merchants, laborers, and travelers. His eyesight weakens more each year, making evening work difficult now. Still, he remains outside a little longer. The rooftop air feels cooler than the rooms below. He watches birds crossing the darkening sky toward distant trees near the river. Below him, families prepare their evening meals. Smoke rises gently from hundreds of small ovens scattered across the city. The smell of onions frying in oil drifts between the buildings. Bread crackles softly beside clay walls heated since morning. A nearby family eats quietly together in their courtyard. The father washes dust from his hands before sitting beside his children. His muscles ache deeply from carrying stone at a construction site beyond the city walls. Fine powder still covers his hair and beard despite rinsing at the public fountain. His youngest son falls asleep while chewing a piece of warm bread. The mother smiles softly before lifting the child into her lap. Night approaches slowly across Persia. The western horizon glows deep orange for a little while longer before fading into blue and silver darkness. Stars appear one by one overhead. The first evening insects begin their soft steady songs. Beyond the cities, the countryside settles into quiet rhythms once more. Farmers guide animals into small enclosures beside their homes. Sheep gather together in sleepy clusters. Donkeys lower their heads beside feeding troughs. The fields themselves become still beneath the growing darkness. Only the canals continue moving. Their water reflects moonlight in narrow shimmering lines through the sleeping land. Beside one riverbank, a fisherman repairs torn sections of net while listening to frogs calling softly from the reeds. The water beside him moves gently against mud and stone. His small boat rocks quietly nearby. Tomorrow before dawn he will return to the river again. He will cast these same nets into dark water while stars still shine overhead. The routine has repeated for so many years that it feels endless now. Yet there is comfort inside familiar labor. The fisherman works slowly beneath the moonlight until his eyes grow too tired to continue. Then he gathers the repaired net carefully into his arms and walks home through the silent village. Far away in the desert, caravan travelers stop for the night beside a dry ridge where wind-carved stones rise from the sand like sleeping animals. Camels kneel heavily upon the cooling earth while workers unload supplies beneath fading starlight. Small fires soon flicker against the darkness. Water boils quietly in blackened kettles. The travelers eat simple meals of bread, dried dates, and lentils while wrapped in cloaks against the colder desert air that arrives after sunset. The desert changes completely at night. The burning heat disappears almost as if it never existed. Cool wind moves freely across the open sand. The sky grows enormous overhead, crowded with stars stretching endlessly in every direction. One young traveler lies awake beside the dying fire long after the others have fallen asleep. He watches sparks drift upward into the night and disappear among the stars. The silence around the camp feels vast. Only camel bells move softly in the darkness. In the mountain villages farther north, evening arrives earlier behind the high ridges. Cool shadows slide quickly through narrow valleys while smoke rises from stone chimneys into the crisp air. Families gather close indoors beside small fires. Stew simmers slowly in heavy pots. An old shepherd removes his worn sandals near the doorway and rubs warmth back into tired feet while his grandchildren listen sleepily to the crackling fire. The mountains hold a different kind of quiet than the deserts. Here the wind moves through pine trees and rocky slopes. Water rushes colder through narrow streams. Nights feel deeper somehow beneath the dark outlines of towering hills. Still, the rhythms remain familiar. Work. Food. Rest. Sleep. And then morning again. Inside Persian homes, much of evening life centers around small acts of care and recovery after labor. Feet are washed. Dust is brushed from clothing. Oil is rubbed gently into sore hands and stiff joints. A mother combs tangles from her daughter's hair beside an oil lamp. An elderly man wraps cloth around aching knees. A young servant quietly sweeps the final dust from a courtyard before lying down to sleep near the kitchen wall. The body carries the marks of daily labor everywhere in this ancient world. Bent backs. Calloused hands. Sun-darkened skin. Slow limping steps at the end of long days. And yet life continues gently onward through all of it. Tonight, in one quiet village near the edge of a broad river plain, the moon rises full and pale above the sleeping fields. Its light spills softly across rooftops, canals, and resting animals. Most homes are dark now. Families sleep close together on woven mats beneath open windows where cooler air drifts inside. Children breathe softly in dreams. Lamps flicker faintly before burning low. Outside, the village road lies empty beneath the moonlight. A single dog wanders slowly past silent doorways before curling beside a wall to sleep. From somewhere distant comes the faint sound of water lifting against stone. Then even that sound fades. The night deepens further. And ancient Persia rests once more beneath the quiet sky. Deep into the night, the ancient Persian world grows softer still. The last lamps fade one by one behind clay walls and wooden shutters. Quiet settles over villages, cities, farms, and desert roads like fine dust drifting gently onto the earth. Most people sleep now. Their tired bodies rest after another long day beneath the sun. Inside a small farming home near the river, a family lies close together across woven mats spread over the cool floor. Thin blankets rest loosely across their legs though the night remains warm. The father sleeps heavily near the doorway where a little breeze still enters from outside. His breathing is slow and deep. Beside him, his youngest daughter shifts quietly in sleep and presses her cheek against her mother's arm. The room smells faintly of warm bread, smoke, and dry earth. Near the wall stand clay jars filled with grain and water saved carefully for tomorrow. Wooden farming tools lean beside the doorway waiting for another dawn. Nothing moves now except the soft lamp flame flickering low inside a shallow dish of oil. Outside the home, the village road lies silent beneath pale moonlight. Earlier in the evening the road carried workers returning from fields and markets. Sandals scraped against stone. Donkeys groaned beneath heavy loads. Voices drifted through the warm air from courtyards and cooking fires. Now all of that has disappeared. Only the night remains. The moon hangs high above the quiet land, casting silver light across irrigation canals that continue their endless movement through the sleeping fields. Water slips gently between mud walls and reeds, whispering softly in the darkness. A frog calls somewhere near the riverbank. Then silence returns again. In ancient Persia, night can feel strangely peaceful after the harsh brightness of day. During sunlight hours the world demands constant effort. Bodies sweat beneath heavy heat. Hands lift, carry, grind, weave, hammer, sweep, dig, and pull. But nighttime asks for very little. Only rest. Only stillness. Only sleep. In the larger cities, however, not everyone sleeps at once. Some workers continue quietly through the dark hours while others rest. Near the center of one Persian city, a night watchman walks slowly along the stone streets carrying a small lantern. Its dim glow moves gently across walls and doorways as he passes. His sandals make soft scraping sounds against the worn road. The watchman pauses now and then to listen. Far away he hears dogs barking faintly near the outer gates. Somewhere above him, fabric shifts in the breeze from a rooftop sleeping area where families rest beneath the open sky. The city feels different at night. Cooler. Wider. The crowded noise of daytime has vanished. Market stalls stand closed beneath cloth coverings. Public fountains flow quietly in empty courtyards. Even the air smells calmer now without the heavy dust and sweat of midday. The watchman continues slowly forward beneath the stars. In one wealthy district, moonlight reflects from shallow pools inside garden courtyards hidden behind high walls. Cypress trees stand dark and still beside carved stone pathways. Servants sleep near kitchens and storage rooms while their masters rest deeper inside the cool interior chambers. A fountain trickles gently through the night. Somewhere nearby, wind chimes move softly in the breeze. Even in these larger homes, exhaustion eventually claims everyone. The servants who spent all day carrying water and cleaning floors now sleep heavily upon thin mats beside quiet hallways. Their hands remain rough and sore even in rest. One young servant dreams uneasily of missing a task and being called awake before dawn again. Another sleeps so deeply that she does not stir when the lamp beside her finally burns out. Night passes differently for every person. For laborers and farmers, sleep often arrives quickly from pure exhaustion. Bodies worn down by physical work surrender easily to darkness. But for older people, rest sometimes comes more slowly. On the rooftop of a modest home overlooking the city, an elderly widow sits awake wrapped in a thin shawl against the cool night breeze. The rooftop stones still hold faint warmth from the day, though the air itself has grown pleasant now. She watches the stars quietly. Below her, the sleeping city stretches outward in silence. She has lived many years beneath these skies. She remembers seasons of drought when the well sank dangerously low. She remembers floods that carried away canal walls and small gardens. She remembers births, funerals, marriages, harvests, illnesses, and long summers of relentless heat. Now most nights are spent quietly like this. Listening to the wind. Watching the stars drift slowly overhead. Waiting for sleep to return. Across Persia, countless older people spend the nights in similar silence. Age changes the rhythm of rest. The body grows lighter somehow. Sleep breaks apart more easily. An old shepherd wakes before midnight and listens to sheep shifting softly outside his stone home. An elderly potter rubs aching wrists beside fading coals. A grandmother rises to drink cool water beneath the moon before lying down again beside sleeping grandchildren. These quiet hours belong to them. Far beyond the villages and cities, the desert lies almost completely silent beneath the moonlight. The sand itself appears pale silver under the stars, stretching endlessly across the land in smooth rolling shapes. At a caravan camp beside an ancient trade road, the fire has nearly burned away to ash. Most travelers sleep wrapped tightly in wool blankets against the cold desert air. Camels kneel nearby like dark shadows against the sand. One guard remains awake beside the fading embers. His eyes move slowly across the darkness beyond the camp where nothing stirs except wind lifting fine grains of sand. The desert at night feels endless. There are moments when the guard can almost believe he is alone beneath the sky itself. The stars appear sharper here, far from cities and villages. They crowd the heavens in silent patterns known to generations of travelers. Caravan workers often navigate by them during long journeys through empty lands. The guard tilts his head upward. The sky feels impossibly large. For a while he forgets the aches in his back and shoulders from days spent walking beside loaded animals beneath burning sun. The night cools his tired body gently. Nearby, a kettle still holds warmth from the evening tea. He pours himself a small cup and drinks slowly while listening to the wind pass over the dunes. Tomorrow the journey will continue. There will be heat again. Dust again. Long miles again. But not yet. For now, there is only stillness. Near the southern waters of Persia, fishermen sleep inside simple reed homes close to the shoreline. Nets hang drying beside wooden posts while small boats rock gently in dark water nearby. The smell of salt and damp rope fills the night air. Waves move softly against the shore in slow repeating rhythms. Inside one small home, a fisherman's wife wakes briefly to check the fire before dawn. She adds another piece of wood to the glowing coals and watches sparks rise briefly into the darkness. Her husband sleeps heavily nearby, exhausted from hours spent rowing against strong currents earlier that day. She listens quietly to the sea for a few moments before lying down again. The sound comforts her. She has fallen asleep beside these waters her entire life. In the mountain regions farther north, the night feels colder now. Wind slides through rocky valleys and pine forests while clouds drift slowly across the moon. A shepherd wrapped in thick wool sleeps lightly beside a small enclosure where goats and sheep rest together for warmth. The animals breathe softly in the darkness. Occasionally one stirs. A bell gives a quiet single sound. Then stillness returns. The mountains hold deep silence at night. Only streams moving through stone break the quiet. In homes throughout Persia, dreams pass gently through sleeping minds. A young farmer dreams of rain clouds finally gathering above dry fields. A merchant dreams of safely reaching distant cities beyond the desert roads. A child dreams of chasing birds beside the river at sunrise. Dreams move quietly through the ancient world just as they do through every age. And outside those dreams, the night continues unfolding hour by hour. Near the center of a riverside village, an old water wheel turns slowly in darkness. The wooden structure creaks softly as the river current pushes against its paddles. Water lifts steadily upward into narrow channels feeding nearby fields and gardens. Even during the night, the labor of the land never fully stops. The wheel turns. The river flows. The stars move overhead. Time itself seems slower here, measured not by clocks but by light, weather, harvests, and seasons. The people of ancient Persia live close to these natural rhythms. Their bodies know when dawn approaches long before sunlight appears. Their skin understands the changing winds. Their lives bend around water, heat, and soil. And during the quietest hours of night, all these rhythms seem to rest together beneath the stars. In one village courtyard, a sleeping child suddenly wakes from a dream and sits upright in confusion. The moonlight spilling through the doorway feels pale and strange against the floor. For a moment the child listens to the silence around him. He hears his parents breathing nearby. He hears insects singing softly outside. He hears distant water flowing through the canal beyond the wall. Slowly he lies down again. Sleep returns gently. The night continues. Hour after quiet hour. Above the rivers, deserts, hills, and sleeping cities of ancient Persia, the stars drift westward while the world waits patiently for dawn. Somewhere in the deep quiet before dawn, the air begins to change again. The night has not ended, but something within the darkness slowly softens. The stars remain overhead, though now they seem dimmer near the eastern horizon where the faintest gray light begins gathering behind distant hills. Ancient Persia rests in this gentle space between night and morning. The coolest hour of the day has arrived. In the farming villages beside the rivers, sleeping families turn slightly beneath thin blankets as fresh air drifts through open doorways and rooftop sleeping spaces. The heat stored inside mud brick walls has faded during the night. Floors feel cool beneath resting hands and feet. For a little while, the earth feels calm and refreshed. Inside one modest home, a grandmother wakes quietly before the others. She has risen at this hour for so many years that her body no longer waits for sunlight. Her eyes open naturally to darkness and silence. She sits slowly upright on her woven mat. Around her, the rest of the family still sleeps deeply. Her son lies near the doorway with one arm over his face. Two children sleep close together beside the far wall, their breathing soft and uneven. The old woman listens for a moment. Outside, she hears only insects and distant moving water. Carefully, she rises without waking anyone and steps into the courtyard. The sky above her is deep blue now, filled with fading stars. Cool air brushes gently against her face and arms. She walks toward the clay water jar resting beside the wall and pours a small cup. The water tastes earthy and cold. For a few moments she simply stands there beneath the quiet sky. These early moments before dawn belong to very few people. The world feels suspended somehow. Work has not yet begun. Voices have not yet filled the roads. Fires remain dark. Only silence moves through the villages. Soon that silence will break apart piece by piece. But not yet. In another part of the village, a baker is already awake preparing his ovens. He kneels beside old ashes while arranging dry brush and small pieces of wood inside the clay chamber. His fingers move automatically despite the hour. He has performed this same task nearly every morning since childhood. Soon a small flame appears. Then another. Warm orange light flickers softly against the courtyard walls while smoke rises into the fading darkness above. Nearby, dough rests beneath cloth coverings prepared during the night. The smell of yeast and grain fills the cool morning air. The baker's shoulders ache as he begins shaping flat rounds of bread with practiced hands. He works quietly, still half inside the softness of sleep himself. Beyond the village, along narrow dirt roads between fields, early workers begin moving through the darkness carrying tools across their backs. Their sandals whisper softly against dust and stone. Some carry wooden hoes. Others lead donkeys loaded with empty baskets or water jars. No one speaks loudly at this hour. Voices remain low and gentle in the half-light before dawn. The fields themselves lie still beneath pale starlight. Crops rustle softly in the breeze while irrigation canals continue their endless movement through the earth. A young farmer pauses beside one canal and kneels to wash his face before work begins. The cold water shocks him awake completely. He wipes droplets from his beard and stares toward the eastern sky where faint color slowly gathers. He knows the heat will return soon enough. By midday sweat will soak through his clothing. Dust will cling to his skin. Muscles will ache beneath the burning sun. But right now, the world feels mercifully cool. Nearby, another farmer untangles ropes beside a pair of oxen waiting sleepily in the dim light. Their large bodies steam faintly in the cool air. The animals blink slowly while flies buzz lazily around them. The farmer rubs one animal gently along its neck before leading both toward the fields. The day begins again. In the cities, dawn arrives more gradually. The narrow streets remain dark longer between tall stone and mud brick walls. Lamps still glow faintly inside some homes while others remain completely silent. Near the marketplace, a tea seller stirs awake beneath a woven blanket spread across the floor of his tiny shop. He yawns heavily and sits listening to the quiet city around him. For a few moments he remains still. Then he reaches for kindling stacked beside the doorway and begins preparing the morning fire. Soon the smell of smoke and mint drifts into the cool air. Elsewhere, public wells begin drawing their first visitors of the day. Women carrying empty clay jars walk through the dim streets wrapped in shawls against the morning chill. Their footsteps echo softly between sleeping buildings. Water splashes against stone basins. Rope creaks against wooden pulleys. The women speak quietly while filling their jars. Some discuss the coming harvest. Others mention children with fevers or relatives expected to arrive with the next caravan. One woman simply stands silently beside the well with tired eyes still heavy from sleep. Even conversation moves slowly at this hour. The city itself seems reluctant to wake. Far above the streets, on flat rooftops where many families sleep during warmer months, people begin stirring beneath blankets and woven coverings. Children rub their eyes while staring sleepily at the fading stars overhead. An elderly man stretches carefully before standing, his joints stiff from age and years of labor. A mother gathers folded blankets while her youngest child still sleeps curled against her side. The first birds begin calling from rooftops and garden trees. Their soft cries spread slowly through the awakening city. Near the palace districts, servants rise before everyone else once again. Courtyards must be swept. Water basins must be cleaned and filled. Morning meals must be prepared before the household wakes fully. One young servant girl carries fresh water through a long stone hallway lit only by the first weak hints of dawn. Her bare feet make almost no sound against the floor. She feels exhausted already. The previous day stretched long into the night caring for guests visiting the household. Sleep lasted only a few short hours before morning duties began again. Still she moves carefully and quietly. Her life follows the rhythm of service. Work before sunrise. Work after sunset. Rest only when permitted. Yet even she pauses for a moment near an open courtyard where cool air drifts inward beneath the brightening sky. The fountain there trickles gently through the silence. She closes her eyes briefly and breathes. Then she continues on. Outside the city walls, caravans preparing for travel begin waking before dawn fully arrives. Traders understand the value of cool morning hours. Desert roads become dangerous beneath midday heat, so journeys begin early whenever possible. At one roadside camp, men roll blankets tightly while camels groan and shift beneath heavy loads. Fires are relit to prepare simple breakfasts before departure. The smell of tea and smoke rises into the pale sky. One traveler stands slightly apart from the others watching the eastern horizon brighten slowly behind distant dunes. The desert stretches silent and endless around him. He knows the road ahead will be long. Days of dust. Heat shimmering above the sand. Dry wind against tired eyes. But dawn in the desert holds a certain peace that almost makes the hardships feel distant for a little while. The cool air. The stillness. The soft colors spreading slowly across the horizon. Even the camels seem calmer at this hour. Soon the caravan begins moving. Bells tied to harnesses create quiet, uneven music as the animals sway forward through the sand. Footprints press into the cool earth behind them. The rising sun follows slowly. Back in the farming villages, smoke now rises steadily from many homes. Morning fires crackle softly beneath clay ovens and cooking pots. The smell of baking bread fills the air once again. Children wake reluctantly while mothers prepare simple meals of flat bread, dates, herbs, and goat milk. Fathers sit quietly near doorways pulling on worn sandals before another day in the fields. One little boy leans sleepily against his mother while chewing warm bread still fresh from the oven. His hair sticks wildly in every direction from sleep. Outside, a rooster calls loudly from a nearby wall. Another answers farther away. The village is awake now. The quiet stillness of night fades gently into the rhythms of morning labor. Donkeys bray impatiently from courtyards. Tools knock softly against stone. Voices rise little by little along the roads. And above it all, the sun slowly climbs into the sky once more. Its first warm light spills across rivers, rooftops, fields, and distant hills. Palm trees glow gold along the canals. Dew evaporates quickly from leaves and grasses. Already the coolness begins retreating from the earth. By midday the heat will return fully. The workers know this. Everyone knows this. So the morning hours are precious. In one riverside field, a group of laborers works quickly repairing a damaged irrigation wall before the strongest sunlight arrives. Mud presses thickly between their fingers as they shape and strengthen the canal edge. Water flows steadily beside them. One man wipes sweat from his forehead though the day has barely begun. Another pauses briefly to stretch his aching lower back before returning to work. Their movements remain steady and patient. No one rushes. There is too much labor ahead for wasted energy. Across Persia, another day unfolds quietly like countless days before it. The same rivers move through the land. The same ovens warm before dawn. The same roads gather footprints beneath the rising sun. And ordinary people continue their lives within these slow repeating rhythms, carried gently forward beneath the endless sky. As the morning deepens across the Persian lands, sunlight slowly spreads into every corner of daily life. The cool softness of dawn begins fading from the roads and fields. Warmth gathers across rooftops, walls, and stone courtyards. Dust rises more easily beneath moving feet and cart wheels. The day is fully awake now. In the farming villages beside the rivers, labor settles into its familiar rhythm. Men work in the fields guiding wooden plows through dry earth while oxen move slowly ahead beneath the growing heat. Water from the canals glitters brightly under the climbing sun. A farmer wipes his forehead with the edge of his sleeve and pauses briefly to straighten his aching back. The smell of damp soil rises around him where fresh water has reached the fields. Nearby, insects hum steadily above the crops. Wheat bends gently in the warm breeze. Across the narrow canal, two women kneel beside shallow baskets washing vegetables gathered earlier that morning. Their hands move quietly through cool water while their conversation drifts softly through the air. One speaks about her oldest son, who may soon leave with a caravan heading east. The other worries about a goat that has stopped eating during the past few days. Simple worries move through village life constantly. A poor harvest. A fever. A broken tool. A cracked water jar. These small troubles fill many quiet conversations beneath the Persian sun. Not far away, children carry bundles of reeds toward the village edge where repairs are being made to an old roof damaged by wind. The bundles scratch against their bare arms as they walk. One little girl lags behind the others, distracted by dragonflies hovering above the canal water. Their wings catch flashes of sunlight as they drift over the reeds. For a moment she forgets the work entirely. Then an older brother calls her name softly, and she hurries forward again through the dust. In ancient Persia, work begins early and rarely pauses for long. Even children learn quickly that daily life depends upon many hands moving together. A daughter grinds grain beside her mother. A son gathers firewood before the heat becomes too strong. Young boys help guide sheep along rocky paths. Young girls fetch water from public wells. The rhythm of labor enters life very early. Yet moments of quiet beauty still appear between tasks. The smell of fresh bread cooling beside a window. The sound of river water moving beneath reeds. The cool touch of shade during the hottest hours. A breeze lifting dust gently across the fields. These small comforts soften the long days. In the cities, the streets grow busier with each passing hour. Merchants arrange goods beneath cloth coverings stretched between buildings to create narrow bands of shade. Donkeys loaded with baskets move slowly through crowded roads while their handlers call out for space. Voices rise and echo against stone walls. Metal workers hammer bronze in open workshops where sparks jump brightly into the sunlight. Weavers sit behind looms in dim interiors where colored thread stretches tightly across wooden frames. The smell of hot bread, smoke, animals, sweat, spices, and warm dust mixes heavily in the air. Near the market center, a seller of dates carefully stacks fruit into neat rows while brushing flies away with a bundle of reeds. His fingers move automatically from years of practice. Nearby, a scribe sits cross-legged beneath a shaded awning recording business agreements onto sheets of parchment. His reed pen scratches softly against the surface while merchants speak over prices and deliveries. Already sweat gathers along the back of his neck despite the shade. The city heat rises quickly once the sun clears the rooftops. Inside larger homes, the morning routines continue steadily. Courtyards fill with movement as servants sweep floors, wash clothing, carry water, and prepare meals. A cook kneels beside a clay oven turning flat bread with tired hands while steam rises from a nearby pot of lentils. In another corner of the courtyard, a young servant hangs wet cloth across a line where sunlight immediately begins drying it stiff. Water splashes against stone basins. Sandals scrape softly over warm floors. Pigeons flutter between rooftops overhead. Even wealthy households depend upon constant labor to keep daily life moving smoothly. Servants rise before dawn and often rest long after darkness falls. One older servant pauses briefly beneath an archway to massage her sore wrists before continuing toward the kitchens carrying another basket of herbs. Her body feels heavy today. The previous evening stretched late into the night preparing food for visitors, and sleep came only briefly before morning duties returned. Still she continues without complaint. Most lives in ancient Persia leave little room for rest. Beyond the cities and villages, the great roads of Persia stretch across hills, deserts, and valleys where travelers continue moving beneath the widening sun. Some roads are busy with merchants and caravans carrying goods between distant regions. Others remain quiet for long stretches, marked only by old wagon tracks and scattered footprints in the dust. Along one such road, a lone traveler walks slowly beside a donkey burdened with woven baskets. The animal's ears flick lazily against flies while its hooves strike dull rhythms against the dry ground. The traveler keeps his head wrapped against the growing heat. Dust coats the edges of his sandals and gathers inside the folds of his robe. He has been walking for days. At night he sleeps beside roadside fires or beneath open skies. During mornings he moves steadily while the air remains bearable. By midday he searches for shade wherever it can be found. A tree. A ruined wall. The side of a hill. Any small relief from the relentless sun. Now and then he passes other travelers moving in the opposite direction. Most exchanges are brief. A nod. A few quiet words. Questions about water ahead or the condition of the road. Then each continues onward alone again through the heat and dust. Near the southern coastlines, fishermen return gradually from the early morning waters. Their boats drift toward shore carrying tangled nets and baskets of silver fish still flashing weakly in the sunlight. The sea already sparkles brightly beneath the rising day. Seabirds circle overhead crying sharply while fishermen pull boats onto the sand with tired arms. One older fisherman kneels beside his nets inspecting small tears that will need repair before tomorrow. Salt dries white against his skin and clothing. Nearby, children help sort the morning catch into baskets lined with reeds. The smell of salt water, fish, and wet rope fills the warm air. The work here never truly ends either. Nets must always be repaired. Boats cleaned. Fish prepared. The sea demands constant effort from those who depend upon it. In the northern mountain regions, the air remains cooler a little longer into the morning. Shepherds guide animals across steep rocky paths while sunlight slowly spills into narrow valleys between the hills. Goat bells echo softly against stone slopes. Pine trees sway gently in the breeze. A shepherd pauses beside a cold stream to drink water from cupped hands while his animals graze nearby among sparse grasses and shrubs. The mountains offer beauty, but life there is difficult too. Winters grow harsh. Paths become dangerous after storms. Food supplies sometimes run low before spring returns. Yet generations continue living among these hills, following the same ancient routes across the slopes year after year. Back in the lowland villages, the morning heat strengthens steadily. Sunlight presses hard against rooftops and courtyards now. Flies gather around animals resting near shaded walls. Dogs pant quietly beneath carts and benches. Inside one modest home, a young mother rocks her infant gently while preparing herbs for the midday meal. Sweat dampens loose strands of hair against her forehead. The child grows restless in the warmth. Outside the doorway, two boys argue sleepily over whose turn it is to carry water from the canal. Their mother barely looks up as she settles the disagreement with a few tired words. These small family moments fill the ancient world quietly. Brothers arguing. Parents sighing with exhaustion. Children falling asleep unexpectedly in the shade after long mornings. Life unfolds not through grand events alone, but through endless ordinary moments like these. Near the edge of the village, an elderly man sits repairing worn sandals beneath a small cloth covering stretched for shade. His hands move slowly now with age, but carefully. Leather creaks softly beneath his fingers. Occasionally villagers stop beside him to exchange quiet greetings or ask about repairs. Most conversations are brief and calm. The old man has watched many years pass through this village. He has seen children grow into parents and parents grow old beneath the same sun and seasons. Now he spends his mornings quietly working beside the road while the world moves around him. As the sun climbs higher still, the air thickens with heat. Voices soften. Movements slow. People begin searching instinctively for shade. The hardest hours of the day approach once again. In the fields, laborers drink deeply from clay water jars before returning to their work. In the city markets, merchants stretch cloth coverings wider overhead to block the sun. Animals cluster wherever shadows gather beside walls and trees. The earth itself seems to grow tired beneath the weight of the day. And through it all, ancient Persia continues breathing slowly beneath the bright endless sky, carried forward by ordinary people whose lives rise and fall with the rhythm of heat, labor, rest, and time. By midday, the sun stands high above the Persian lands, bright and unwavering. Its light presses down upon rooftops, roads, rivers, fields, and distant hills with a heavy stillness that seems to slow the entire world. The air itself shimmers above the dry earth. Dust hangs motionless in narrow streets. Even birds retreat into shade beneath trees and rooflines. This is the hardest part of the day. In the farming villages, workers move more slowly now beneath the burning heat. The morning energy has faded from their bodies. Sweat darkens their clothing and stings their eyes. Hands grow stiff from gripping tools hour after hour. A farmer pauses beside the canal and kneels carefully to drink from cupped hands. The water feels warm already beneath the midday sun, but still refreshing enough to ease the dryness in his throat. Nearby, oxen stand nearly motionless in the shade of a rough wooden shelter while flies drip lazily around their faces. The fields themselves seem quieter now. Only the sound of insects and moving water continues steadily beneath the heat. Many laborers retreat briefly into whatever shade they can find. Some sit beneath woven coverings stretched beside the fields. Others rest against mud brick walls or beneath clusters of date palms near the river. No one wastes unnecessary movement at this hour. Energy must be protected carefully. A young worker lies flat upon the cool earth beneath a tree while holding a folded cloth across his face to block the sunlight. His chest rises slowly with exhaustion. Beside him, an older farmer chews silently on herbs while staring out across the bright empty fields. Neither speaks. Words feel too heavy in the heat. Farther down the canal, two women continue washing clothing beside the water, though their movements have become slower and more deliberate. Wet cloth slaps softly against smooth stones while dragonflies drift low across the canal surface. The women occasionally pause to splash cool water across their arms and necks. Even the smallest relief feels precious now. In ancient Persia, people learned to live beside heat rather than fight against it. Homes are built with thick mud walls that trap cool air inside shaded rooms. Courtyards provide pockets of breeze during long afternoons. Daily schedules bend around the movement of the sun itself. Morning belongs to work. Midday belongs to endurance. Evening belongs to relief. These rhythms shape nearly every part of life. Inside the cities, the midday heat settles heavily between crowded buildings and narrow roads. Market activity slows. Merchants sit quietly behind their goods while customers move from shade to shade beneath cloth coverings stretched overhead. The bright stone streets reflect sunlight upward in waves. A spice seller fans himself slowly with a woven palm leaf while flies circle lazily above baskets of dried herbs and dates. Nearby, a metal worker pauses his hammering and wipes sweat from his face with blackened hands. The forge beside him still glows faintly. Even standing near it feels unbearable now. Across the marketplace, a tea seller pours cool water into clay cups for weary travelers resting beneath a shaded wall. The travelers drink slowly and silently. One man removes his sandals briefly and rubs dust from tired feet. Another leans back against the wall with closed eyes, listening to the distant sounds of the city moving sluggishly around him. From somewhere deeper in the market comes the faint cry of a donkey refusing to move beneath its load. The sound echoes briefly through the heat before fading again. Inside wealthier homes, curtains are drawn across open archways to block the harsh sunlight. Servants move carefully through shaded halls carrying water jars cooled in underground storage rooms. In one courtyard, a fountain trickles steadily into a shallow basin surrounded by smooth stone. The sound of moving water feels soothing against the silence of the afternoon. A wealthy merchant reclines upon cushions beneath a shaded canopy while a servant slowly fans the air nearby. Even in comfort, the heat cannot be fully escaped. Sweat gathers beneath fine robes. The air remains heavy. Outside the courtyard walls, laborers continue working beneath the same relentless sun. A young servant girl kneels beside a basin washing vegetables for the evening meal. Her hands ache from carrying water all morning. The stones beneath her knees feel hot even in the shade. Still she works carefully. Mistakes create more labor later. Nearby, another servant hangs damp cloth over windows where the slight breeze may cool the rooms within. The cloth flutters gently for a moment before becoming still again. The afternoon stretches slowly onward. Beyond the cities, desert roads shimmer beneath waves of heat. Travelers move carefully now, covering faces with cloth to protect against dust and burning sunlight. At a caravan rest stop beside a dry ridge, camels kneel heavily in narrow strips of shade cast by rough stone walls. Their long necks droop lazily while caravan workers sit nearby eating small portions of bread and dried fruit. No one wishes to travel farther until the sun lowers. The desert teaches patience. Movement during the hottest hours can drain strength dangerously fast. So caravans often pause at midday, waiting for evening before continuing across the open sands. One young traveler lies beside a rolled blanket watching heat shimmer across the horizon. The distant dunes blur and shift in the brightness until sky and earth seem to melt together. The silence feels enormous here. Only wind and the occasional clink of camel harnesses disturb the stillness. The traveler closes his eyes. For a few moments, half asleep beneath the heat, he dreams of cool river water and shaded gardens far away. Near the southern coastlines, fishermen repair nets beneath rough-woven shelters while the sea sparkles painfully bright beneath the overhead sun. Boats remain pulled onto shore until evening currents become safer and cooler again. Salt dries stiff against skin and rope. Children nap in the shade beside stacked baskets while older workers quietly untangle knots from damp fishing nets. The smell of salt water mixes with hot sand and drying fish. An elderly fisherman sits cross-legged beside the shoreline mending torn netting with slow practiced fingers. His weathered face barely changes expression as he works. He has spent entire lifetimes beside these waters. Storms. Calm seas. Good catches. Empty nets. All of it has passed before him beneath countless rising and setting suns. Now he works quietly through another hot afternoon while waves roll steadily onto the shore nearby. In the mountain villages to the north, the heat feels less crushing but still strong enough to quiet the world. Shepherds guide animals carefully toward shaded slopes where thin grasses survive between stones. A boy sits beside a stream cooling his feet in the water while goats graze nearby. The sound of moving water echoes softly through the narrow valley. Above him, hawks circle lazily in the bright sky. Even here, movement slows during midday. Animals rest. People speak less. The mountains themselves seem to sleep beneath the afternoon sun. Back in the farming villages, homes become places of temporary refuge during these hottest hours. Families gather inside shaded rooms where thick walls soften the heat slightly. Children nap beside mothers resting from morning labor. Elderly grandparents sit quietly near open doorways where small breezes occasionally drift through. One old woman slowly grinds herbs with a stone mortar while humming softly beneath her breath. The room smells of cumin, onions, and warm bread stored for the evening meal. Outside, sunlight burns white against the courtyard floor. Inside, shadows hold a little coolness. A young mother lies beside her sleeping child and closes her eyes briefly, though true rest rarely lasts long. Soon there will be more water to carry. More grain to prepare. More fires to light before evening. The work of life moves endlessly forward. Still, these quiet midday hours offer small moments of pause between tasks. Near the edge of the village, the old sandal maker has stopped working for now. He sits motionless beneath his cloth shelter sipping warm water from a clay cup while watching dust drift across the road. Almost no travelers pass at this hour. The roads themselves seem abandoned beneath the heat. Insects hum steadily in the dry grass nearby. The old man's eyes grow heavy for a moment. Then a faint breeze moves through the village, lifting the edge of the cloth above him. He breathes deeply. Even a little moving air feels like mercy beneath the Persian sun. Slowly, almost unnoticed at first, the afternoon begins its long gradual movement toward evening. Shadows stretch slightly farther across the ground. The brightness softens by the smallest degree. Workers glance toward the sky without thinking. They feel the change before they fully see it. The hardest hours will not last forever. Soon the sun will lower. Soon the ovens will glow again. Soon tired families will gather beside lamps and evening meals while cooler air drifts through courtyards and rooftops. But for now, ancient Persia remains suspended beneath the deep heavy stillness of afternoon, where heat, silence, and exhaustion settle gently across the land like a slow endless dream. Little by little, the afternoon begins to loosen. The fierce brightness above the Persian lands softens almost too slowly to notice at first. Shadows lengthen across courtyards and fields. Heat still rises from stone roads and mud walls, but the air no longer feels completely still. A faint breeze returns. Dust drifts gently along the village paths. The hardest part of the day is passing. In the fields beside the rivers, laborers lift their heads again after resting through the midday heat. Some stretch sore backs before returning to unfinished work. Others rise silently from patches of shade beneath trees and woven coverings. The earth remains warm beneath their sandals. Sweat dries stiff against their clothing. Yet evening is approaching now, and with it comes renewed movement across the land. A farmer grips his wooden hoe once more and walks slowly between rows of wheat glowing pale gold beneath the lowering sun. The canal water beside him reflects shifting light like moving strips of bronze. Nearby, two boys guide a stubborn donkey pulling a small cart loaded with cut reeds. The donkey resists every few steps, causing the boys to sigh heavily with tired frustration. One wipes dust from his face using the edge of his sleeve. The other laughs quietly despite the exhaustion. Their voices drip softly through the warm evening air. Along the canals, women gather jars of water before darkness arrives. Clay containers knock gently together while water splashes into them from narrow channels and wells. The smell of wet earth rises from the banks where feet have pressed the mud soft. An older woman kneels carefully to rinse vegetables in the cool water. Beside her, a younger girl washes her face and closes her eyes briefly as droplets run down her cheeks. The cooling water feels comforting after the long afternoon heat. Across ancient Persia, people begin returning gradually to the routines of evening. Fires are prepared. Animals gathered. Meals planned. The entire world seems to exhale slowly. Inside the cities, markets awaken once more after the heavy stillness of midday. Merchants straighten their goods beneath the softer light while customers return to the roads and stalls. Voices rise gently. Footsteps echo through narrow streets. The city begins breathing again. A baker removes fresh rounds of bread from the oven using long wooden paddles blackened by years of smoke and heat. Steam rises into the air carrying the rich smell of grain and fire. People passing nearby slow their steps almost without thinking. Warm bread at the end of the day feels deeply comforting. Nearby, a fruit seller arranges figs and pomegranates into neat baskets while brushing dust from their skins with careful hands. Children linger close to the stall staring quietly at the fruit glowing red and purple beneath the evening light. The seller smiles tiredly and hands a bruised fig to the smallest child. The child's eyes brighten for a moment before she runs back toward her mother through the crowded street. At the edge of the marketplace, a tired water seller lowers himself slowly onto a wooden stool beside his nearly empty jars. His shoulders ache sharply from carrying water through the city since dawn. The grooves from heavy ropes remain pressed into his skin. Still, he feels relief knowing the day is nearly done. Around him, evening conversation drifts softly through the warm air. People speak of harvests, weather, prices, and family news. A merchant complains quietly about damaged goods arriving late with the last caravan. Another discusses repairs needed for a leaking roof before the next rainy season. Simple conversations. Ordinary worries. The endless small concerns of daily life. Inside homes across the city, preparations for the evening meal begin filling courtyards and kitchens with warmth and movement. A servant kneels beside a grinding stone crushing herbs into fragrant paste while nearby onions cook slowly in oil. Smoke curls upward toward the fading sky. The scent of cumin, lentils, garlic, and fresh bread drips through open doorways into the streets outside. Children wander close to cooking fires asking when the meal will be ready. Mothers answer patiently though exhaustion weighs heavily in their voices. An old grandfather sits quietly near one doorway repairing a woven basket while listening to the sounds of his family moving around him. The basket creaks softly beneath his fingers. The evening light catches the deep lines in his face. He has lived through many seasons in this same city. Many summers of heavy heat. Many winters of cold desert winds slipping through the streets at night. Now he spends most evenings sitting quietly like this, surrounded by familiar sounds. Cooking fires. Children laughing. Sandals crossing stone floors. Water pouring into clay cups. These sounds comfort him more than words. In wealthier homes, evening meals are larger and more elaborate, yet even there the same quiet exhaustion settles over the household after long days. Servants carry trays through shaded courtyards lit by oil lamps beginning to glow against the growing darkness. Fountains ripple softly in marble basins while guests recline upon cushions beneath hanging fabrics that move gently in the evening breeze. Musicians sometimes play slow melodies on stringed instruments while conversation drifts through the warm night air. But beyond the polished stone and fine fabrics, the rhythms remain familiar. People eat. People rest. People grow tired beneath another passing day. Outside the city walls, the countryside glows beautifully beneath the lowering sun. Date palms cast long shadows across irrigation canals. Birds cross the sky in dark moving shapes returning toward nesting places near the riverbanks. Farmers gather tools and begin leading animals home through dusty roads. A shepherd whistles softly while goats and sheep crowd together around him in restless clusters. The bells around their necks create quiet uneven music as they move. One little lamb struggles to keep pace through the dust until the shepherd finally lifts it gently into his arms. The evening air carries the smell of dry grass, warm earth, smoke, and distant water. The land itself seems calmer now. Near one riverside village, children run barefoot through the cooling dust while chasing one another between homes and garden walls. Their laughter echoes briefly into the open evening. Nearby, women spread damp cloth across rooftops where the night breeze may cool them before sleep. A man sits beside a doorway sharpening a farming blade with slow careful movements while his wife prepares lentil stew over a small fire. The simple glow of evening settles over everything. Far away along the desert roads, caravans begin moving once more after resting through the hottest hours. Camels rise heavily from the sand while traders secure ropes and bundles for the evening journey. The setting sun paints the dunes in soft gold and deep amber colors. Wind moves gently across the open desert now. Travel feels possible again. One caravan leader studies the darkening horizon while adjusting the cloth wrapped around his head. He knows the night journey ahead will be long but cooler than the brutal daylight hours. Nearby, a younger traveler drinks deeply from a water skin before climbing slowly onto a camel's back. The animals begin moving forward in long swaying lines across the fading desert light. Their footprints trail behind them like soft patterns in the sand. Soon darkness will cover the road completely. Only stars and memory will guide them onward. In the mountain villages, cool evening shadows settle quickly between the hills. Shepherds return with their animals while smoke rises from stone chimneys into the blue evening sky. Families gather indoors beside fires where stew cooks slowly in heavy clay pots. The mountain air smells of pine wood, smoke, and cold water flowing through nearby streams. An elderly woman wraps wool around her shoulders while sitting beside the doorway watching the final sunlight disappear from the peaks above. The mountains darken one ridge at a time. Night arrives early here. Back in the river villages, the first stars now begin appearing overhead. Oil lamps glow warmly inside homes. The sounds of labor fade little by little from the roads and fields. One fisherman sits beside the river repairing nets beneath fading light while frogs begin calling softly from the reeds nearby. The river moves calmly beside him. Its surface reflects the first pale stars of evening. He works slowly now, tired from the long day. His fingers ache from pulling wet rope and rowing against currents since before dawn. Still, there is peace here beside the water. The night breeze cools his skin. The sounds of the village soften behind him. Soon he gathers the repaired net carefully into his arms and rises to walk home beneath the growing darkness. And across ancient Persia, families, workers, travelers, servants, shepherds, fishermen, merchants, and children all move gently toward another quiet night beneath the endless sky. Night settles slowly across the Persian world once more, The final colors of sunset fade from the rivers and hills, leaving behind deep blue shadows and soft silver moonlight spreading quietly over the land. One by one, lamps begin glowing inside homes and courtyards. The heat of the day still lingers in the walls and roads, but cooler air now drifts gently through open windows and narrow streets. People breathe easier in the evenings. Bodies loosen. Voices soften. The labor of the day begins slipping away. In a small riverside village, families gather close together for the evening meal. Warm bread rests in cloth-lined baskets beside bowls of lentils, herbs, onions, and goat cheese. Clay cups filled with water pass slowly from hand to hand. A father sits cross-legged beside his children while rubbing stiffness from his wrists after a day repairing canal walls beneath the sun. His youngest daughter leans sleepily against his shoulder while chewing small pieces of bread. Nearby, his wife quietly pours stew into shallow bowls as smoke from the cooking fire drifts upward into the darkening sky. The courtyard feels peaceful now. Above them, stars begin filling the night. The sounds of the village continue softly all around. Distant conversation. A donkey shifting beside its post. The gentle splash of canal water moving through the fields. Somewhere nearby, someone laughs quietly before the sound fades again into the warm evening air. In ancient Persia, evenings often move slowly like this. After long hours of labor, people rarely rush through the night. The darkness itself invites calmness. Workers sit outside their homes allowing the breeze to cool tired skin. Children grow drowsy beside flickering lamps. Old people speak softly beneath the stars while remembering earlier years. The world feels smaller and gentler after sunset. In the cities, evening life unfolds beneath hanging lanterns and glowing windows. The busiest hours of the marketplace have passed now, though some merchants still remain beside their stalls hoping for a few final customers before sleep. A tea seller pours steaming cups for tired travelers resting near the city gate. The scent of mint and smoke drifts through the night air while nearby camels kneel heavily upon the earth after long journeys. The travelers drink quietly. Dust still clings to their robes and sandals. One man stretches his sore back while staring upward at the stars just beginning to appear above the rooftops. He has traveled for many days across dry roads and desert paths tonight. Even the noise of the city feels comforting compared to the empty silence of the open sands. Nearby, a young stable boy brushes dust from a tired donkey beneath the glow of an oil lamp. His movements are slow with exhaustion. The donkey lowers its head sleepily while the boy murmurs soft words almost under his breath. The smell of hay, leather, and warm animals fills the stable yard. Farther inside the city, wealthier homes glow softly around quiet courtyards filled with trees and fountains. Guests recline on cushions while servants carry trays of fruit, bread, nuts, and cooled drinks through the warm evening air. Music drifts softly from stringed instruments played somewhere beyond the columns and garden walls. Yet even in these elegant homes, weariness remains close beneath the surface. Servants move carefully on aching feet. Cooks wipe sweat from tired faces beside still warm ovens. Older guests lean heavily against cushions while listening to conversation fade gently around them. No life escapes exhaustion entirely. In one quiet courtyard, a servant girl kneels beside a basin washing the final dishes from the evening meal. Moonlight reflects across the water as her hands move slowly through soap and clay bowls. The sounds of laughter from the courtyard guests grow softer as the night deepens. Soon even those voices will disappear. The servant pauses briefly and looks upward at the moon hanging above the cypress trees. For a moment she simply breathes the cool night air. Then she returns to her work. Outside the city walls, farmers finish securing animals for the night. Wooden gates creak softly shut around small enclosures where sheep and goats gather together beneath the darkness. A shepherd counts quietly under his breath while checking the animals one last time before sleep. Nearby, dogs circle twice in the dust before curling beside the gate. The smell of dry grass and warm animals settles over the village edge. In one home, An elderly grandmother braids a child's hair beside an oil lamp while softly humming an old melody almost forgotten by everyone else. The child struggles to stay awake, blinking slowly as shadows move across the walls. Soon the grandmother lifts the sleepy child onto a woven mat beside the others already resting. Blankets rustle softly in the darkness. The lamp flame bends gently in the breeze. Outside, the stars grow brighter. Near the riverbanks, fishermen continue small tasks beneath moonlight while preparing for another dawn. Nets hang drying beside wooden poles. Boats rock gently against the shore. One fisherman repairs a torn section of net with careful fingers while listening to water move quietly against the reeds. The river smells cool and earthy at night. Frogs sing steadily from the shadows. The fisherman works without hurry. There is comfort in repetitive tasks during the quiet hours. The steady pull of rope through fingers. The soft sound of water nearby. The cool breeze replacing the heat of the day. Eventually he folds the net and rises slowly to leave. His knees ache sharply when he stands. Still, he smiles faintly toward the river before walking home beneath the stars. Far out in the desert, caravans continue moving through the night where travel is easier beneath cooler skies. Long lines of camels cross silver dunes beneath moonlight while bells tied to harnesses create slow uneven rhythms against the silence. The desert at night feels endless and dreamlike. Wind smooths footprints behind the travelers almost immediately. Distant dunes blur softly into darkness beneath the stars. One young caravan worker struggles to stay awake while walking beside the animals. His eyes burn with exhaustion. Dust coats his lips and eyelashes. Yet the night air feels gentle compared to the brutal heat of day. Ahead of him, the caravan leader guides the route by memory and starlight. He knows these roads deeply after years crossing the same deserts again and again. Water sources. Rock formations. Safe resting places. Dangerous stretches of empty land. All of it lives inside his memory now. The caravan moves onward quietly through the darkness. In the mountain villages, night settles cold and deep between the high ridges. Fires crackle inside stone homes while families gather close together against the chill air drifting through the valleys. Stew simmers slowly in heavy pots. Wool blankets wrap around tired shoulders. An old shepherd sits beside the fire repairing a leather strap while his grandchildren sleep nearby. The firelight flickers gently across the stone walls. Outside, wind moves softly through pine trees and rocky slopes beneath the moon. The mountains feel ancient at night. Silent. Still. Watching over the sleeping villages below. Back in the lowlands, rooftops fill with sleeping families seeking cooler air beneath the open sky. During warm seasons many people rest outdoors after sunset where breezes drift more freely through the night. Woven mats cover flat rooftops across towns and cities alike. Children sleep curled beside parents. Old men snore softly beneath thin blankets. Women whisper quietly together for a little while longer before sleep finally arrives. Above them, the stars stretch endlessly across the dark heavens. Some people gaze upward before closing their eyes, tracing familiar constellations passed down through generations. Travelers use them. Farmers watch them. Storytellers speak of them beside fires and lamps. The stars belong to everyone equally. In one village near the edge of a broad wheat field, a young mother remains awake after the others have fallen asleep. She sits quietly beside the doorway holding her infant close while listening to the night. The child finally sleeps against her chest after hours of fussing in the lingering heat. Outside, insects sing softly beneath the moonlight. A breeze moves through the dry grasses beyond the home. The mother looks toward the sleeping forms of her family spread across the floor and smiles faintly in the darkness. She feels exhausted. Her arms ache from carrying water and tending fires and caring for children since before dawn. Yet moments like this feel strangely peaceful too. The world has finally grown quiet. No more shouting in the marketplace. No more heavy footsteps through the fields. No more burning sunlight pressing against the earth. Only darkness. Only soft wind. Only the endless night stretching gently across ancient Persia once again. As the night deepens further, silence spreads gently across the Persian lands. The roads empty completely now. Marketplaces stand dark beneath folded cloth coverings. Cooking fires shrink to dim glowing embers inside quiet courtyards. Even the animals settle into stillness beneath the cooling air. Only small sounds remain awake. The slow turning of a water wheel beside the river. The rustle of palm leaves in the breeze. The distant bark of a dog somewhere beyond the fields. These sounds drift softly through the darkness and then disappear again. In one small farming village, moonlight spills across flat rooftops where families sleep beneath the open sky. Woven blankets rise and fall slowly with breathing bodies. A little boy murmurs in his sleep and turns closer toward his older brother beside him. Their father lies awake for a few moments longer staring upward at the stars. His body aches deeply tonight. The day was long even by usual standards. A section of canal wall collapsed during the afternoon heat, forcing the farmers to work extra hours beneath the sun repairing the damage before precious water escaped into the dry earth. His shoulders still burned from lifting wet mud and heavy stones. Yet now, beneath the night breeze, the pain feels softer somehow. The cool air eases his breathing. Above him, countless stars drift slowly across the dark sky. Eventually his eyes grow heavy too. Sleep comes quietly. Inside nearby homes, older family members who remain indoors rest upon woven mats beside open windows and doorways. Lamps burn low in shallow clay dishes filled with oil. The rooms smell faintly of dust, warm stone, and extinguished cooking fires. An elderly grandmother wakes briefly and listens to the soft breathing of the sleeping household around her. She hears her grandson shifting in sleep beside the far wall. She hears insects singing outside. She hears water moving gently through the canal beyond the courtyard. These familiar nighttime sounds comfort her. She has listened to them for many decades. Slowly she closes her eyes again. The night continues. In the cities, rooftop sleeping spaces stretch across entire neighborhoods beneath the stars. During warm months, many families escape the heat trapped inside thick stone and mud brick walls by sleeping above the streets where breezes move more freely. From above, the rooftops appear almost like another quiet city layered over the sleeping one below. Blankets. Clay water jars. Sleeping children. Folded clothing resting beside woven mats. A few lamps still glow faintly here and there, though most have already gone dark. In one rooftop corner, two sisters whisper softly together while the rest of the household sleeps nearby. Their voices remain low and sleepy. They speak about small things. A wedding expected later in the season. A neighbor's newborn child. A bracelet lost somewhere near the marketplace earlier that day. Gradually their conversation fades into silence. Soon they sleep too beneath the stars. Far below them, the city streets remain almost empty now. A lone night watchman walks slowly past closed shops carrying a lantern whose weak light trembles against the walls as he passes. His footsteps echo softly through the narrow roads. He pauses occasionally beside quiet alleyways and listens. Mostly he hears nothing. The city breathes quietly in sleep around him. Somewhere nearby, water drips steadily from a public fountain into a stone basin. Farther away, a tired donkey shifts inside a stable. The watchman continues on through the darkness, wrapped in his cloak against the cooler night air. In wealthy homes behind high walls and carved gates, silence settles deeply over shaded gardens and marble courtyards. Fountains continue flowing softly beneath moonlight while servants sleep near kitchens and storage rooms after long exhausting days. One servant lies curled beside stacked baskets and clay jars, too tired even to remove dust from her feet before sleeping. Another sleeps sitting upright against a wall with folded laundry still resting in her lap. The labor of the household never fully ends. Even rest often arrives suddenly and without comfort. Yet the night itself offers some kindness. The coolness. The quiet. The temporary pause from endless tasks. In one garden courtyard, an old merchant sits awake alone beside a fountain long after the others have gone to sleep. The moonlight reflects gently across the moving water while citrus trees release faint sweet scents into the air. He holds a small cup of watered wine loosely between tired fingers. For many years he traveled the great roads between cities carrying cloth, spices, oils, and carved goods through deserts and mountains. Now age has slowed him. His sons manage most journeys while he remains home more often beneath familiar walls and gardens. Sometimes at night he misses the open roads, the desert wind, the endless stars above caravan camps, the quiet movement of camels across moonlit sand. He listens to the fountain for a while longer before finally rising slowly and disappearing into the sleeping house. Beyond the cities and villages, the countryside rests beneath silver moonlight. Fields stretch quietly beside winding canals and rivers. Wheat moves gently in the night breeze like soft waves across the earth. At the edge of one field, a scarecrow leans crookedly beneath the stars while insects hum steadily in the grasses nearby. An owl glides silently above the crops searching for movement in the darkness. The land itself seems deeply asleep now. Only the rivers remain constantly awake. Water slips endlessly through canals built by countless hands over generations. Some canals are ancient already, repaired again and again across the years by tired workers standing knee-deep in mud beneath burning sun. Tonight they flow quietly beneath the moon, reflecting stars, carrying life through dry earth. Near one riverside dock, several fishing boats rock gently against wooden posts. Nets hang drying beside them like pale shadows in the darkness. A fisherman wakes briefly inside a nearby reed house and listens to the water outside. Tomorrow he will rise before dawn again. He will untangle ropes with stiff fingers, push the boat into dark water, cast nets beneath fading stars. The routine never truly changes. Yet somehow the river remains beautiful to him after all these years. Even now, half asleep, he smiles faintly while hearing the water move beyond the walls. Far across the desert roads, a caravan camp rests beneath an enormous sky crowded with stars. Small fires burn low among sleeping travelers wrapped tightly in wool blankets against the cold night air. The desert cools quickly after sunset. The same sands that burned beneath the afternoon sun now feel cold beneath resting hands. One young traveler wakes shivering and pulls his blanket closer around his shoulders. Nearby, camels breathe slowly in sleep while their shadows stretch long across the pale sand. The traveler looks upward. The stars above the desert feel endless, brighter than anywhere else. For a moment he forgets his exhaustion entirely while staring into that vast silent sky. Then sleep slowly returns again. In the mountain regions, clouds drift across the moon while cold wind moves through pine forests and narrow rocky valleys. A shepherd sleeping beside his animals wakes briefly at the sound of distant bells somewhere along the slope. He listens carefully for a moment before relaxing again. Only another flock moving in the darkness. He settles deeper into his blanket beside the dying fire. The smell of smoke and pine needle surrounds him. Below the mountains, the villages sleep quietly on. Across Persia, the night carries thousands of small unseen moments like these. A child dreaming beside an open doorway. A tired mother finally sleeping after soothing her infant. An old man waking to drink water beneath the moon. A servant rubbing sore feet before lying down at last. A traveler staring into desert stars. Ordinary lives unfolding gently beneath the darkness. No great battles. No grand ceremonies. Only people resting after long days of work beneath the ancient sky. Hour after hour, the night drifts onward in silence. The moon slowly crosses above rivers, deserts, farms, mountain villages, palace gardens, crowded cities, lonely roads, and sleeping rooftops. And ancient Persia remains wrapped in calm darkness, breathing softly beneath the stars while the world waits quietly for another dawn. Very slowly, the night begins to thin once more. At first the change is almost impossible to notice. The stars still shine above the Persian lands, and darkness still fills the roads, fields, and sleeping courtyards. Yet somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, the world is already beginning to turn gently toward morning. The air feels cooler now than at any other hour. A soft breeze moves through palm trees beside the rivers. It slips across rooftops where families sleep beneath blankets and woven coverings. It drifts through narrow city alleys and over silent desert roads. For a little while, the earth rests in complete calm. In one village near the river, an elderly farmer wakes before dawn as he always has. Age has trained his body to rise early no matter how late sleep arrived the night before. He opens his eyes slowly beneath the fading stars. Around him, the rest of the household remains asleep. His grandchildren lie tangled in blankets nearby while faint moonlight touches the edges of the courtyard wall. The old man sits quietly for a moment, listening. He hears insects singing softly outside. He hears distant water moving through the irrigation canals. He hears someone coughing faintly in another nearby home. These sounds feel familiar and comforting. Carefully he stands, joints stiff from years spent bending over fields and lifting heavy tools. His knees ache sharply at first until movement slowly warms them. He steps outside into the courtyard. The air feels cool against his face. Above him, the stars begin fading one by one. He walks toward the clay water jar resting near the wall and pours himself a small cup. The water tastes fresh after the long warm night. For a while he simply stands there in silence beneath the dark sky. Soon the village will wake. Fires will burn. Animals will cry out for feeding. Children will stumble sleepily into another day of chores and errands. But for now, the quiet belongs only to the few who rise before dawn. Across Persia, many workers begin waking during these early hours. Bakers are often among the first. Inside a small bakery near the center of a crowded city, a baker kneels beside his clay oven arranging kindling with tired hands. His beard still carries traces of flour from the previous day. Soon sparks appear. Then flames. Warm orange light flickers against the walls while smoke curls upward into the darkness above the roof opening. The baker moves slowly but confidently. He has repeated these same motions for most of his life. Preparing dough. Lighting fires. Shaping bread before sunrise. His body knows the work almost without thought now. Outside the bakery, the streets remain mostly empty. Only a few early footsteps echo through the darkness as water carriers and laborers begin moving quietly toward their morning tasks. A young water carrier balances two empty clay jars across his shoulders while walking toward the public well. The jars knock softly together with each step. He yawns heavily as he walks. The city still feels half asleep around him. Nearby, a stray dog wanders through the silent market roads searching for scraps left behind from the previous evening. The smell of cold ashes and dust lingers in the air. Far above, rooftop sleepers begin stirring beneath blankets as the breeze cools their skin. In wealthier homes, servants rise before everyone else once again. Quiet movement returns to shaded courtyards and stone hallways long before sunrise touches the city walls. One servant girl crosses a courtyard carrying folded cloth toward the kitchens. Her bare feet move silently over cool stone. The fountain nearby trickles steadily through the darkness. She pauses beside it briefly and splashes cool water across her face before continuing on. Her eyes still feel heavy from sleep. The previous evening ended late after guests remained long into the night. Yet dawn always arrives quickly for servants. There are fires to prepare, floors to sweep, water to carry, meals to cook. The great homes of Persia wake slowly, but the work behind them begins long before sunrise. Outside the cities, the fields remain dark beneath fading starlight. Farmers walk narrow paths between canals carrying wooden tools over their shoulders while the earth still holds nighttime coolness. One younger farmer walks beside his father in silence. Their sandals brush softly through dust and dry grass. Neither speaks much this early. Words feel unnecessary before the day begins. They reach the canal and kneel beside the water together. The younger man splashes water across his face while the older one studies the sky carefully. The seasons matter deeply here. Rainfall, river levels, the health of crops. A farmer's eyes learn to watch the sky constantly over the years. The old man notices faint clouds far in the distance and quietly wonders whether they may bring rain in the coming days. Even small hopes matter in dry lands. Nearby, oxen shift sleepily beside wooden plows waiting for morning labor. Their breath rises faintly in the cool air. Soon the fields will fill with sunlight and heat again. But for now, the world remains gentle. In the desert regions, caravan camps slowly come alive beneath the fading stars. Travelers emerge from blankets stiff and cold after the chilly desert night. Small fires are rebuilt from glowing embers. Tea kettles are placed over the flames. Camels groan softly while workers tighten ropes and gather supplies for another day upon the road. The desert before dawn feels strangely peaceful. The sand holds pale silver color beneath the moonlight. The sky above stretches endlessly in every direction. One caravan guard stands alone upon a small ridge overlooking the camp. His cloak moves gently in the wind while he watches the horizon brighten faintly far away. He has crossed these deserts many times. He knows how quickly the heat will return once the sun rises. For now, though, the air feels almost cold. He closes his eyes briefly and listens to the silence around him. Only wind. Only distant camel bells. Only the soft crackling of fire below. In the southern fishing villages, fishermen wake before first light and move quietly toward the shoreline carrying nets over tired shoulders. The sea appears dark blue beneath the fading stars. Waves roll softly against the shore. One fisherman pushes his small wooden boat into the water while his son steadies it beside him. Both men remain mostly silent in the cool pre-dawn air. Their hands know the work already. Soon they drift away from shore where lantern light glimmers faintly across the water. Behind them, the village remains mostly asleep. Smoke has not yet begun rising from the homes. No voices fill the roads. Only the sea moves steadily beneath the dark sky. In mountain villages to the north, cold morning air slides through narrow valleys while shepherds wake beside small fires reduced to glowing coals. A shepherd pulls his wool cloak tightly around his shoulders before standing and stretching stiff muscles. His flock sleeps quietly nearby among the rocks and grasses. Soon they will begin climbing the slopes once more in search of grazing land. The mountains remain shadowed and blue beneath the final hours of night. Streams rush softly through stone channels below. Pine trees sway against the fading stars. Everywhere across Persia, the ancient rhythms begin again. Before sunrise comes preparation. Before heat comes movement. Before noise comes silence. Inside homes, mothers begin grinding grain while children still sleep nearby. The low turning sound of stone wheels slowly returns to the villages. Bread dough is prepared beneath oil lamps. Water jars are filled. Animals are fed. Life rises carefully out of darkness. In one small home, a mother gently wakes her oldest daughter to help prepare the morning meal. The girl rubs sleep from her eyes while kneeling beside the flour bowl. Neither speaks much yet. The room still feels wrapped in nighttime quiet. Together they work beside the lamp while the first faint gray light slowly enters through the doorway. Outside, a rooster finally calls from somewhere near the edge of the village. Then another answers farther away. The sound drifts softly through the cool pre-dawn air. Night is ending now. The stars fade steadily above the rivers, deserts, fields, rooftops, mountain paths, and sleeping roads of ancient Persia. And slowly, gently, another day begins to rise across the ancient world. The first light of dawn spreads softly across the ancient Persian lands. Cool gray morning slowly touches the rivers, the quiet rooftops, the dusty roads, and the sleeping fields where night mist still lingers close to the earth. The stars fade one by one above the distant mountains until only the palest traces remain in the brightening sky. Across villages and cities, people still sleep for a few final moments before another day begins. The canals continue their slow movement through the fields. Palm leaves whisper gently in the breeze. Somewhere far away, a shepherd's bell gives one soft sound against the silence. The world feels calm. Very calm. In a small riverside home, an old oil lamp finally burns low beside a sleeping family. Warm bread rests beneath cloth from the night before. A clay water jar stands cool in the corner. Outside the doorway, morning birds begin to stir among the reeds. The air smells faintly of earth, smoke, and river water. A fisherman prepares quietly beside the shoreline while the sea reflects pale silver light beneath the dawn. A baker kneels beside warming ovens. A caravan rests silently in the desert for a few final peaceful breaths before the long road returns again. And over all of ancient Persia, the soft morning sky grows brighter. The rivers continue flowing. The fields continue breathing beneath the wind. The stars slowly disappear into daylight. And the ancient world drifts gently onward, quiet and endless beneath the rising sun. Now the roads grow still. The lamps fade. The night air softens into morning. And somewhere beside the calm water of an ancient river, beneath the first golden light of dawn, the world finally grows silent enough for sleep.